Sorry, guys. Oh, let me go to my other terminal. All right, cool. So now I can initialize the artist class. The next thing that I'm going to run is I want to initialize an artist, right? I'm going to get an instance of the artist class, and then I'm going to call the name equals method, right? And again, we said this is the name equals method. It takes one argument. That other thing is just sugar. It's not assignment, and we want to be able to pass in some variable, which is a string, and we want to be able to call the name method and have it return that thing back out. So there's nothing specific that the test is telling me that I have to do. All I know from the test for sure is that I need a name equals method, which takes one argument, and I need a name method. So let me start with that. So the error I got, right, was no method name equals. Let me run it again. And now it says it expects I have both of these methods, but when I call the name method, it should return Adele. So I could hard code it, right, and I could say Adele. Okay, cool. And so now I've passed that, right? So the test asked that I have a name equals method. It takes one argument, and that I have a name method, and that it should return Adele. So I'm being kind of like intentionally obtuse here. We should never be hard coding stuff like that, but hopefully these tests are going to like drive out that like this is sort of like insufficient, right? And really probably what the test is implying is we're going to set some instance variable and then we're going to return some instance variable. But I'm just kind of like going to make the point that this is really how we're supposed to do test-driven development. Okay, so next thing that we need to do is we need to be able to call a songs equal method, pass in one argument, and then we should have a songs method, and it should return an array. Cool, I passed that, and now I want to have a song added. So now I have a method called add song on an artist. So we know the let code is going to create us a new instance of an artist. We're going to call its add song method, and I'm going to pass in one argument. And then when I call the songs method, I expect that whatever object I pass in here, and we know song is going to give us an instance of the song class, this should be part of an array that gets returned. Okay, so let's make the add song method. And a songs method. Let's see how this does. Do I? Oh, awesome, thank you. It says uninitialized constant song. So what it's telling me is that in my code, right, it's trying to initialize an instance of the song class, and I do not have a song class. So let me make a song class. And it also says it expects when it calls the songs method on artist, it should include the song that I passed into the add songs method. So it expects us to have this object stored in this array. So now we've kind of like hit the limit of my like stupid hard coding, and we actually have to like take a step back and like think about what are we really saying here? What are we trying to do? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to say really like that an artist knows what songs it sings, right? So going back to this like database example, Kendrick Lamar is going to be our artist. He's going to sing like 2 songs, right? and we want him to keep track of that. So we're going to instantiate one instance of an artist that's going to be a particular artist. That artist sings particular songs. And when I tell that artist what song he sings or she sings, we add some new song to their knowledge. We want to keep track of it. So let's take a step back and let's say, okay, when I add a song, probably what I want to do is follow this like Ruby convention that we have some variable that matches our getters and setters, and that those guys take in a variable by the same name. It sets it equal to an instance variable by the same name. We return an instance variable by the same name with our getter. And then we have some method that's going to modify that variable. So I'm going to say whatever we pass in, I'm going to add it to this songs array. And I'm hoping that at songs, the moment that I call add song has an array set there already. So if I come back to my artist spec, where do I call, where is it? So I say artist.songs equals an empty array, right? So I'm kind of like setting the initial state of this at songs variable here. And then when I call the songs getter, I'm returning what I started with. Then I'm coming here and I'm saying, okay, let me add a song. And when I look at what's in that songs array, hopefully that song should be there. So I think I'm going to run into problems here. Let's see what happens. So I get undefined method, shovel method for nil class. So we have to ask ourselves, like, why did this one work and this one did not work? Well, the reason that this one did not work is because at the time I call add song, nothing has really been done before this. There's no setup that's been done. So the way that the tests push us to define this artist class, the test says, hey, you're going to have this way that you can change what songs is. Some of us might think like when an artist gets created, they should always have this bucket called at songs, and it should start off as an empty array. And later, we want to be able to alter that thing directly and change the whole array of songs. And so we have this songs equals method. To me, it doesn't make a ton of sense that we'd have like a songs equals method. I don't imagine a program or like a world where I'm just going to like wholesale replace all of the songs. But the test is forcing us down a path where it's saying you must allow this to happen. So I'm always telling you guys, you can create the classes however you want. You can design the interface to work however you want. It just has to make sense to you. And then we come into the test and we force you to do things in like a very particular way. So I want to reinforce the idea that like this is all made up, right? This method, us telling you have to have a songs equals method. You have to be able to totally replace this at songs instance variable. This is like totally made up. And in my opinion, this is not how I would do it. But what we have to do is we have to make a blueprint that allows the program that this test wants to run and the interface that the test wants. We have to make a blueprint that allows it to work that way. So we have to both have a way to replace all the things in the songs, and we have to have a situation where we can call add song at any time, and we have an empty array at the very least that's waiting for songs to be pushed into it. So the only way I can do that is if the minute that I create an artist, if I make sure that it always has an empty array to start with. Because again, when we look at the artist spec, all it's calling in this test, it says I should be able to just call artist, which instantiates a new artist. So I'm going to call the initialize method, I'm going to call the add song method, and I'm going to call the songs method, and everything should just work. The only way that that can be so is if I initialize this class with a songs array. And this makes sense to me. I would say like anytime you give birth to a new artist, they should be like ready to hold songs, right? It doesn't really make sense to have an artist that like doesn't sing songs or can't sing songs. So anytime we create a new artist, it makes sense to me that I want to be able to say, hey, you're ready to like start singing. That is the definition of an artist. This doesn't make as much sense to me to say that like once you've sung a bunch of songs, I just want the ability to replace them and say you never sang those songs. I'm going to tell you like the new songs that you sang. This one here. So, I mean, that's a good question, right? Like, can we use the shovel method here? It depends, right? Like, we have to make the tests pass. And so the tests, like, might imply or might be able to be passed in a way that I don't think necessarily follows, like, Ruby conventions. So the Ruby convention is if we have a method called songs equals, it will always look like this. So unless we wrote the test to, like, break the convention or like do something out of the ordinary. This is how I would think we're thinking the songs equals method works because this is by definition like how we write a writer in Ruby. Is it true that like this would pass if we use the shovel method? I don't know. Let's check. So if we use the shovel method, we're going to run into a problem. So the question is like, why do we run into a problem? Let's look at our specs. So if we look at this call here, so we say it has songs. So all we're going to do is we're going to create a new artist, which is going to initialize the songs instance variable to have an array to hold further songs. And then we're going to say we want to be able to call the songs equals method and pass in an empty array. So if we pass in an empty array into here, we're going to have an array already, and then we're going to say into that array, I would like to put another array. So to me, it makes more sense to say we're just using assignment, and we're just replacing whatever we put in with a new list of songs or an empty list of songs, and the tests also enforce that like that's the only way we can do it. That's an awesome question. All right. Okay, next we want songs to be able to, we want artists to know about their genres, right? So what does the test say specifically we have to do? Oh, sorry, I passed another test without knowing it. So how many songs it has? So if we create a new song and we call the songs equals method, we want to be able to pass in a new instance of a song, right? So this is like telling Kendrick, hey, I don't care what songs you sang before, this is the list of songs you now sing. I'm going to pass in one song and another song, and maybe that's swimming pools and some other song. And then when I ask you later, what songs do you sing, you should tell me you sing 2 songs. So this is another way we know when we call songs equals, we must be doing assignment in this songs equals method, because there's no other way that we could replace what he had before with this stuff and only have 2 things. If songs equals only like added stuff to his initial stuff, we'd end up with a count of like more than 2, right? It would be 3 or 4 or 5 or something like that. All right, so now we need to let Kendrick know about what genres or what genre he's a part of. Maybe we live in a world where you can be part of multiple genres, right? That totally makes sense. And maybe not. So we have to see like what the model of the world is that like this test is creating, and it may diverge with like our thought of like how the world should work. Okay, so we're going to instantiate a new song, and then we're going to call its genre equals method. So this is the equivalent of telling like swimming pools, you are a rap song, right? And I'll rewrite this method. We haven't talked about the tap method, but we can talk about it now. Right, so this is the genre equals method. It takes one argument, and we'll put all this on the line above. So this is all that was happening in that little tap block, is we're creating a new instance of genre, and we're setting its name equals method. We're using its setter. We're passing in a string called rap, and then we're calling its genre equals method and passing in that genre object we just created. So let's say this song is let's say this is swimming pools. That's the new song we're making. The new genre we're making has a name, and that name is rap. Then we're passing that genre into the genre equals method of the song. So again, like here, we're trying to wire up all of this stuff. So at the end of this method, the artist knows about its song, the song knows about its genre, and like we're kind of building that database in memory. So that we can ask any of these individual objects, hey, like swimming pools, what genre are you in? It should tell me rap. I should be able to ask the artist, what songs it sings, and it should tell me, like, I sing swimming pools. So at the end, we say our expectation is that when we call the genres method, we want it to be the genre that is associated with the song. So we're basically testing that all of these associations are kind of wired up in memory. Okay, so let's go through like what's specifically happening here. So song must have an initialized method because that's what new does. Genre must have an initialized method because that's what new does, right? Genre has to have a name equals method. Song has to have a genre equals method. Artist already has an add song. An artist now has to have a genres method. So I'm just going to go through one by one and just write these methods and have them do nothing. So at the very least, we'll pass that portion. So I'll make the genre class. And classes have an initialized method by default that does nothing, so I don't need to actually make the initialize method. So I need a name method. Sorry, name equals method. I need a genre equals method on song. I need add song, I already have, and then I need a genres method on artist. You'll notice I haven't used any attribute readers, writers, or accessors. This is the lab where people get the most confused by those things. They start putting in accessors or readers or writers. Suddenly the test passed, they're happy, they have no idea what the accessors do. So I'm going to be like super explicit. At the end, if we want, we can refactor and take out all of these individual methods and define them as accessors. So let's see what my test does now. Okay, so I got a failure. It says undefined local variable or method song. That's because I screwed with the test. And I'm just doing this to add like a little bit of clarity around like what's the song that we're talking about. So we're not talking about some abstract song. Changing the name of the variable does nothing in terms of like the actual program. Okay, so now we have a new failure. It says undefined method genre for song. Where is that coming from? In our expectation, we expect the artist object to have a genres method, and when we do our comparison, we expect the song to have a genre method. So let me add that. Now we get a new error, and we expect, this is like the real error, right? We expect the genres method on artist to include the genre of the song. So we haven't done any like wiring to allow our program to know, to be able to ask the artist, hey, what genre like are you actually a part of, or what genres are you a part of? And our song doesn't know what genre it's a part of. So it says expected nil to include nil, but it does not respond to include. So we got to do all this wiring. We need to tell all these objects about one another. So when I look at the test, I have to say like, okay, there's only a certain amount of methods that I'm calling, so I have to be able to like be setting instance variables inside some of these methods so that later when I look at their getters, the getters actually return things and these objects kind of like know stuff. So it's probably not in the initialized method of song that I'm doing any like wiring. Probably not this either. But here in the genre equals method, I'm passing in a different object. So I'm giving a song object a genre object. So probably there is where I want to do this like association or wiring or something like that. And I want to tell this song about this genre that I'm passing to it. So in my genre equals method, it'd be great if a song, rather than just taking in a genre and then throwing it out, if it saved it, right? And if it said, okay, hey, if you pass me the rap object, I'm going to keep track of that. So now I know that I am a rap song. And then later, when you ask me, hey, what genre do I belong to, I'll tell you, hey, that thing that you stored earlier in that instance variable, I'll give it back to you. So that's part of it, right? So now we said we expect nil to include this genre object. So nil is coming from the left side, right? Artist.genre still hasn't done anything. But now we told the song about the genre, and it's this specific object here, right? It's this actual genre object. It is the rap object. So now we got to work on the left side. So if I look, what else is going on is I call add song, and I call genres. So I know that like in the add song method, I must be telling the artist object, hey, this is like the genre that you belong to. So I pass to the artist the actual song, right? I give the artist this song, and then later I ask it, hey, what genres are you a part of? So in the add song method, I must be telling the artist, based on the song that I gave you, here's what genre you now are a part of. So in artist, I come to add song, and I must be doing two things now, right? I need to keep track of what songs I sing, but I also need to keep track of what genres I belong to. So let me put pry in here. I'll require it. So when I actually call add song, when I actually call add song, now I am like actually creating individual songs and like doing my work. So when I come in here, by putting pry in here, I can figure out kind of like what's in scope, right? So I want to know what objects I can actually talk about, what objects I can refer to, because I need to be able to do this thing, and I don't know how to do this thing yet. So to me, the like simplest way to keep track of genres is to create an instance variable called @genres, and then add a genre to that list. So let me, in my artist, in my initialize method, I want there to be a list of genres, because that makes sense, right? Every time an artist gets created, there's a bunch of genres that they could belong to, and we want to like get it ready to know those things. All right, so let me run this again. So now I'm here, and I could say, okay, I want to keep track of your genres that you belong to. Now you have a container to hold these things, right? So I'm like half the way there. There's a thing that can keep track of it. I have a variable. Now I have to like actually put stuff into that variable, so I create that association. Okay, so the question is like, what objects do I have access to? So what is self inside an instance of the artist class? Yeah. So self inside an instance method. So we're here, right? So we're in the artist class. We're in an instance method of a particular artist, right? So we're inside Kendrick Lamar, right? So if I ask what self is, if we had given this artist a name, it would say Kendrick Lamar, right? This is a specific artist. This is Kendrick. This is not some generic idea of what an artist is. So I have self always. What other variables are in scope right now? How do I know what variables are in scope? What's a variable? Okay, so I have an instance variable, right, @genres. How else do I know what variables are in scope in a method? Can I just type random characters and it'll just work? How do I know what variables I can call in a method? So instance variables, any instance variable that's been defined, I can call. And Sylvia is also saying any local variable, something that I've defined. Any other ways we get variables in a method?
all the methods of whatever that object is.
Agreed, but that doesn't like give me new variables. So let me ask you this, guys. I make a method called times x, right? And this method does 5 times 5. Is there any way that I can make this method, can I make it multiply by something other than 5? Or is it just like stuck? If I wanted to multiply 5 times 7.
You have to pass in an argument.
Okay, so I pass in an argument. So I could say 2 multiply, or we could call this x. Right? And now we can multiply 5 times x, right? And now I can call the method times x, and I can pass in 7 now to multiply 5 times 7, right? So we can pass in arguments to methods, right? And then those arguments are now variables in our method, and they are now in scope. Okay, so we know that. So looking at this method, what other variables are in scope right now? Song. Okay. So song is an actual instance of song. Why is it an actual instance of song? Why is it not something else? Gil? Absolutely. So if we look at the test, what's actually happening, right, this is not imaginary. So we could use this method a million different ways. If I wanted, right, I could replace this with a string, but that's less useful, right? So I'm going to pass in an object. The specific object is an instance of song, right? We said Kendrick singing the song Swimming Pools. So now when we come in here, this is the song Swimming Pools, right? It is an object, and we know because we can just look at the test and see what the test passed in. Okay, so we have self, we have song. Is there any way we can refer to the genre of this song?
Yeah.
How? Song has a method called genre, right? And that should give me back the genre of the song. Right now, it's returning nil. So what I want in this method is I want to have access to myself, right, the artist. I will already have that. I want the song, and I want the song's genre. So I don't have all the wiring yet to do what I need to do. I need to make sure that the song knows what genre it is. Okay, so let me come back through this test. So I said swimming pools equals song new, genre, blah, blah, blah. So now I set the swimming pools genre to be the genre that got passed in. So my question is, like, I must have screwed something up when I did the wiring between the song and the genre. So let me take a look at that. So I have this genre equals method on song. This looks right to me. Did I make a typo or something? This is like an honest question. I'm not pretending like I don't know. I don't know why. Wait, add song runs after this has been run. So it looks like in song, I have a genre equals method. I pass in a genre. I set the instance variable. And then when I call genre on the song, I should get it back. I'm getting back nil. Oh, I know why. I'm running RSpec. It's running all of the tests. So I'm in the wrong test right now. So I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to run the specific test, which you can do by giving it the line number. So we have, what is this? This is the artist spec 39. Thank you. So I should be able to ask for self, I should be able to ask for song, and I should be able to ask for the song's genre. Right? So now the song gives me back the specific genre object. So now I have all three objects, right? I have the artist, I have the song, and I have the genre. So I need to keep track of what genres I belong to in the artist, right? And we created an instance variable that would do that for us, right, at genres. So all I need to do, now that I have a way to refer to the genre object, is I need to push it into at genres. And there we go. Now at genres has an instance of the genre object, right? It's the right instance. It is wrap itself. And hopefully now we should be all good. So I'm just going to rerun this. Yeah, thank you. And let me actually do the code. And a lot of you guys hopefully are noticing, like, rather than just guessing at what this stuff should be, I just go into Pry and I type it out, and then if it works, I can just literally copy the code right into my code. Run it again, and we still fail. So it says expected nil to include the genre object. So we are still doing something wrong. Does anybody know what we're doing wrong, Gil?
On your define, you have the best genre.
Mm-hmm.
If you have,
Join me's up if you want to look. There. No, you can't see.
yeah, yeah, you're supposed to pass a genre instance variable and genre exception check for genre.
Say that again?
In the genres method,
Okay.
I think you should put the genre instance variable so that when it asks the genre double pass.
Absolutely. So Gil's pointing out that the actual test that is running is we are calling the genres method. So it's not sufficient to have the genres instance variable have the information in it, right? Because we have some specific API that we need to define so that the test can run this program. And if the instance variable genres is set, but the genres method doesn't return it, everything will be working, but will still fail the test. And again, this is arbitrary. We don't necessarily have to have a genres method. But if we want to write a program that allows this test to pass, a blueprint, we have to do it this way. So maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's not, but our test won't pass unless we do it this way. And now our test passes. Cool. Yay. All right, class methods. Okay, this is the worst part of this assignment. I've said this before, I'll say it again. In general, we don't use class methods. We don't use class variables, and we don't use constants as like an array that like change. We just don't really do it. But we want to teach you guys about class methods and class variables, just so you know that they're there. If you see them in a library or something like that, we want you to kind of like have some sense for like what these things are. So to pass these tests, you have to do this like really weird stuff, and we would never do this in real programming. So I'm going to explain how it works. Hopefully, it's like it illustrates and like gives you a better understanding of what class variables are and what class methods are and why you might use them. This is a completely contrived idea. So if this is confusing, just let it go. If this makes sense, like hold on to it. Okay. So we expect there to be a class method. How do I know it's a class method? Absolutely. So if it was an instance method, it would look like this. Right? So that's an instance of artist, and that is an instance method because it's being called on an instance of artist. A class method is called on the class itself. So just from looking at this, I know I must have a class method called resetArtist. So let me do that first. Okay, cool. So I have the method, but it also expects that I have a class method called all. Right? To actually do the test, it calls the class method all, and it expects whatever is in there to be empty. So this is one of those like cute RSpec matchers that's calling dot empty on an array. You can look that up in the documentation. The whole point of RSpec is that like a lot of stuff you can just kind of understand just by reading it what we mean. So we mean that there's an array, and we mean that array is empty, but literally there must be an array returned, and you must be able to call the empty method on it, empty question mark, and there should be nothing in there. So now I know that I have to make an all method. And it says, now we got the real error, right? We expected blank, to respond to empty. So the left side of the test here, right, is just returning nil. And we expect that nil should have a method called empty question mark defined on it, and it should give us nothing back. So right now, all is not returning an empty array, so I will make it do that. And now we pass. Right? Again, I'm hard coding this. It probably doesn't make sense, but hopefully the rest of the test will force me into like a more intelligent way to do this. Yes?
Can you explain why particular in self?
Say that again?
Why it has to have self-included methods?
Oh, you mean the definition here?
Yeah.
It's a really easy answer, just because. That's how you define a class method. So you can either define it like this, but in the context of the class, self is the class itself. So writing the artist class or self is functionally the same. Okay, so then we have this little before block. So we know we're going to have this this instance of artist sort of like hanging out. And we know that we're going to call the reset artist method, this class method, before we instantiate a new artist. So we're kind of like cleaning out the class. One of the reasons we don't use class variables is because stuff persists at the class level. Whereas every time you create a new instance, all of its instance variables go away. It goes away every time you go to a new test. Class variables and stuff at the class level will persist until you reload the class. So another reason why we don't really use class methods or class variables. So we have to do this like weird little cleanup step before every test so the tests aren't bleeding together. So we are hoping that when we call the class method all on the artist class, that the instance artist should be a part of that array. So the only way that that could be so is if in the all method we're doing something to add that artist to the array, which wouldn't really make sense, or in the initialize method. Those are the only two methods that are getting called as this test runs. So probably in the initialize method we need to do something. So we need to wire up some kind of like memory system so so that when we ask it, hey, what are all the instances that have been instantiated, so that we know. So a couple different ways to do this. We can create a class variable called artists, and similarly to how we do this at the instance level, typically in the instance level in the initialize method we say, hey, okay, like let's create this like holder, and then like let's push stuff into it whenever it makes sense. So now in the initialize method, let's do this. We can just say, I'm going to say self.all, like I have this array. Let's change this array to be this class variable. And then I'm going to push into it what? Myself, right? So how do I refer to an individual instance? It's self. So I want to tell it, hey, take this individual instance that just got created and let's push it into this like class level variable that knows about all of the instances of this class. Did we pass the test? I think I screwed up an earlier test. Okay. Say that again? In general, as much as possible, I like to call methods rather than access instance variables directly. But we could... Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the problem here. I made a mistake So when I said self.all, what is self in this method referring to? It's the instance, right? So I'm calling an instance method called all, and then asking it to return something that should be an array and pass myself in there. So we can see it says undefined method all for the instance of artist. So a number of people pointed that out, and they said you could call artist itself, right? That would be the class. Or you could call self.class.all, because the class of self is the artist class. I like this better. Let's call artists. Let's see what happens. Cool. So I think that one worked, but now I think like some of my earlier like dumb stuff caused a problem. So class methods can reset all artists that have been created. Where's that one? Was I? Awesome. Okay, so we want to be able to call reset artists, right? And as of now, reset artist does nothing, right? So I just tried to pass that test by being kind of stupid. Now it's like forcing me back and saying, hey, what you did earlier was insufficient. So every time I create a new instance, I'm adding to this artist list, and because like stuff once you load a class, it doesn't get reloaded. That's one of the problems with class level variables. So we have to manually do this step where we clear out the array, not at artists. So every time I call reset artist, I want to manually tell the class, hey, you have this class variable, but let's like wipe it clean. Absolutely. I like that better. So rather than accessing the instance variable directly, we could say, hey, we made a method called all. We're at the class level. We're in a class method. So we can call the class method all on ourselves. Ourselves are the class itself right now because I'm in a class method. That should return to me this array, right? Because it should return whatever's in at artists, and then I should be able to call clear. We should be good to go. Cool.
I set it all up. I noticed you did all your class methods above the initialize, and then all your other setters together below it. That's pretty cool. Like, and where would you put like your adder, accessor, adder, reader? That'd be like right above initialize, but under the self class.
I like to adder stuff like all the way at the top,
All the way down.
and then like any variables up here, and then any class methods there, and then initialize. Some people like initialize always at the top with adders above, and then class methods right below, and then instance methods below that. Some of it's just preference.
Yeah, I was curious.
But yeah,
Make sure that was on purpose.
yeah, this is on purpose. Other questions? On board? All right. Artist class methods can count how many artists have been created. So we want a class method called count, and it should return 1, I assume, after we instantiate an artist. So before each of these things, right, we create one new artist. So when we call the count method, we should get 1. So I just ask the all method, right, to give me all the artists, and then I count them. Cool. Okay, so now we're on to genres. Questions on the artist class? Okay. So we've already defined the genre class, so that one passed automatically. Now we're going to go through, we're going to make a new genre. I'm going to go a little bit faster through the genre class because this is going to be like exactly the same thing. So stop me if I'm going too fast. Right, we have the name equals method, and then we have a setter and a getter. So just traditional setter and getter. That passes. We should have many songs. So we're going to call the name equals method on this genre instance 3 times. We're going to create a new song. We're going to call the genre equals method and pass in that genre, and then we expect the number of songs in the songs instance variable to be 3. All right, so let's make our, we have a genre equals method on song. So this is kind of weird. So we make a new genre, we make a new song. No, this is not weird. And then for each song, we call its genre equals method, right? So we're setting the association between the genre and the song. I was thinking we were doing the opposite, and we were calling the song equals method on the genre, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So each song, we're going to tell it about its genre, right? We're going to create that association. And then we need, in the genre equals method, to be also telling the genre about the song, right? So we're wiring up so that the song knows about its genre, and we need to then also wire it up so that the genre knows about its songs. So that has to be happening in the genre equals method because there's no other methods that are being called. So how do I refer to the genre object inside this method? What? I can't hear you. Your hands are putting out. Self. Okay, so if I put self, so self is always going to be the... So self is going to be the song, right? And then genre is going to call the genre method, which will give me this instance variable, which should be an instance of the object. It's probably also sufficient to just call the genre local variable that's getting passed in here. So what you said totally works. I think it's a little bit more specific to refer to this variable that's getting passed in. So I could say, hey, genre object, I want to use your songs method to give me an array of songs, and then I want to push myself into that. So I'm saying there must be a songs method on genre. I don't know if I made that yet. I think there should be an instance variable called songs in it. I think it should be initialized to an array because every genre should be able to hold a list of songs, and then I should be able to push myself in there. Yeah. Yeah, so this is like very confusing for a lot of people because they're like, I'm in the song class, like how do I tell the genre class something? If we pass in an object, that's the great thing about object-oriented programming, we can call methods on it, we can do everything that we've exposed through methods to other objects. That's the whole like idea of creating methods is we call this the public interface of this object or this class. So anything we want to be able to do from another object, we have to write a method that allows us to do it, right? When we're in here, we can call @name, and we're referring to the name instance variable of this particular genre. But when we're in a song, @name would be the song's name. So if I want to talk to the genre or talk about the genre, I can only call its methods. And that's why we make methods, because that is the public way that we can access other objects' information.
So I think the hardest part about this for me, when I finally got it, it all made sense. But I didn't realize that because there's so many genre, I didn't realize that it was actually passing in the object.
Yeah.
So when you see all these genres, I didn't realize that genre.songs could be done because an object is being passed. Once I knew that, then it clicked. But it took me a really long time to actually.
And how do we know that, right? We could put pry in here. And again, we're talking about this distinction between the blueprint and the actual code, right? So when we refer to genre here, how do we know what it is? We don't. It could be anything, right? This is a blueprint. This class can be used however we want. It could be that this class is being used like this. It could be song equals song.new, song.genre equals, and I could pass in the string hello, right? In which case, calling the songs method on the string hello will do what? Nothing. Well, it'll give you an error, right? I'll say undefined method songs. So we're making a blueprint for how our code could work and should work. And anybody later that comes along, maybe it's our coworker or like the guy or gal that sits across the room for us or somebody 6 months later or ourselves 6 months later. If we forget that this is how this method works, and that this method expects that the genre, object, parameter, variable, whatever that gets passed in, must have a method called songs defined on it. Our program will blow up. So I could make a class called school. I can make a method called songs. It could be an array of songs, right? And if I instantiate this object, it'll work, right? Because this object, when it gets passed in, becomes the variable genre. When we call the songs method, we are sending that object a message saying, hey, do you have a method called songs? And it says, yes, I do, right? And I will return these things. So all we're saying is that there must be a method called songs, and it must return an array, and I would like to add myself into that array. Oh, yeah, can we... Yeah, so let's hold off on that. We're not there yet. All right, so I said this is like a program that could work, right? Let's look at what program we're actually running, right? The program we're actually running is we're passing in a specific genre object, right? So again, we have this idea of like how it could be used, and then how it is actually being used in the test. So let's run it. 13. So when I'm in this method, now I can ask, hey, what things do I have access to, right? I always have myself. I'm in a song. I have the local variable genre because it gets passed in as a parameter. What's genre? Genre is an instance of the genre class, right? Can I call genre.songs? No, I can't because I haven't. It says undefined method songs for genre. So I need to make a method called songs, right? And what should that return? Following the convention, right? This is a getter. It's going to return an instance variable with the songs array. The songs array doesn't exist, right? But we expect that every time a new genre is created, it should have a way to hold all of the songs that will later be sung in its genre, and it'll hold them in an array. We run this again. Now I have myself, right, which is a song, the genre local variable, and I want to ask it, what are the songs that you sing? Now there's an array to hold that stuff, and into that array, I would love to push myself. Cool? Now we passed. Okay, so now we want to be able to do artists. All right, so again, what's going on here? We make a new genre, right? We set its name. We create a new artist. We create a new song. We associate the song's genre with this specific genre up here, right? The rap genre. We call the add song method. We pass in that specific song, and then at the end, after all of that's done, we expect all of these crazy associations to be made, and the only one that we're specifically testing is, have we told the genre what artists are a part of it, right? So we're talking about rap. This could be like Kendrick, right? Kendrick is the guy that's getting created. And we want to tell Kendrick, you are a part of the rap genre, right? And maybe some other artists. Maybe it's Kendrick and Jay-Z or something like that. So somewhere in all of these methods, we need to be making that association. So I'm going to do it in the add song method because I don't think the other methods make as much sense to be doing it there. So when I add a song, I want to make sure at the end the wiring is such that a genre knows about its artists. So let's go into, so it's the add song method on an artist. So I have this add song method, right? We need one more thing. We need to tell the genre that this artist is a part of it. I'm going to put pry in here. I'm going to run this specific spec. It's 22. So I have self, right? I have the artist. I have song. I have song.genre. So I have a way to refer to the artist, a way to refer to their song, and I have a way to refer to the genre. And somehow I have to wire the artist and the genre together. So my goal is I want to be able to call the artist method on genre. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I have an artist method. And that should follow the convention and return an instance variable called artist. And anytime I create a new genre, right, I want to create this bucket and say you're going to hold artists later. So let me run this again. Okay, cool. So now I can say artist is just self, right? I can say song. I can say song.genre, and I need to tell the genre about these artists. So I should be able to say song.genre.artists, and that should give me an empty array of artists. And then how do I tell that empty array of artists about this particular artist? Myself, right? So I get back this an array, and I say I want to push myself in. Myself is an instance of artist. And now I should be able to call song.genre.artists, and it gives me back the list of artists, and that list of artists now includes myself. Does that logic follow for you guys? So whenever you're in a method, keep track of like what you have access to, right? Which objects you're playing with, and what is the association you need to create between those objects. And the way you create associations, instance variables, and calling methods, and usually pushing objects into those arrays. Let's see if that passes. Now it does. All right. What are we doing next? I want to keep unique artists. So I'm going to make a new genre. I'm going to make a new artist. 2 times I'm going to create a new song, associate that song and that genre. I'm going to add that song to the artist. And then I expect that I only will have one artist in the genre.artist method. So whatever that returns, there should only be one thing in there. So what we're saying is we're really creating 2 different songs, but both of those songs are rap songs, and they both belong to the same artist, right? So we're using Kendrick again, and why would we want 2 instances of Kendrick in the rap genre, right? That doesn't make any sense. So we need to be a little bit like smarter when we do this adding of artists to the genre, right? We don't want to just wholesale, anytime we add a song, just add that artist to that genre, because if we've ever seen that artist, if that artist has ever sung a song before, we're going to get like multiple copies of that artist object in that array. So we need to come into that method, and we need to say something about this is funny, right? We are doing this too much. We are always doing it, right? So how might we describe only doing this if this thing doesn't already exist in the genre? How do you describe doing something or not doing something based on a condition? What? Unless? Okay, so we could use unless. I like the positive version unless if. Okay, so we need some kind of conditional. So if something, right? So we only want to do this if something is true. So what's the condition under which we want to do this in English?
It doesn't include
Okay, so if Kendrick is not already in the genre rap, right? Does that make sense? So how do I change this English into Ruby? Or no, artist, right? Myself. So if the artists array inside the genre, and we can refer to the genre by asking the song what genre it belongs to. So all of this is like thinking about how do we get access to the object that we're talking about, right? So we started at song. We said song knows what genre it belongs to. Okay, so now I'm talking about rap. I can ask rap, what artists are a part of your array? Who do you know about so far? And if that array includes myself is Kendrick Lamar in this case, then I don't need to do this, right? It means I've already done it. If I haven't already pushed myself into that array, then I should push myself into that array. So again, we're like building this database in real time. So we have this blueprint for like how do we tell songs about their genres, how do we tell genres about their artists, blah, 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 blah. And we don't know every time we call add song whether or not like, have we ever seen Kendrick or have we not seen Kendrick? So we just say, hey, if we've seen Kendrick before, we don't need to like rewire this up. If we haven't seen Kendrick, we need to wire it up. So that later in our spec, we can say, hey, genre, like, how many artists do you have? And we shouldn't have added Kendrick if we have already added Kendrick. Cool? All right, let's see if that passes. No. Yes.
Could you go back to the artist? So is that saying it's true that insert artist? So if Kendrick exists, we're gonna insert him into artist.
Yeah. So this makes no sense.
So it's the opposite.
It's the opposite of this. So I'm saying, if Kendrick already exists, push him in there. We want the opposite, right? If he doesn't exist, push him in there. So I can just do that, right? I can either do that or I can do bang. I can do that or I can do unless. This to me makes more sense. I'd probably even write another method that did this for me. That was like named in a positive way. Let's see if this passes.
So like an include artist.
What?
I'm just thinking of like a method that would do that.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be like include.
Yeah. If like, let's call it.
Include self. Does not.
Maybe not in genre. I don't love that name, but I think that's a little bit better. So I'm saying, if I'm not already in the genre, add me. And that still passes. All right, artist with songs. Nope. I screwed something up. Oh, undefined local variable. Song. I'm referring to song here, so I need to pass song in here. Undefined method artist for nil class. with songs. Has song can have a song added. So we are at, oh, in the artist spec. I broke something in the artist spec. Not in genre. 23. So we call add song, right, here. We pass in a song, and then we call artist.songs. So in my artist class, in this specific spec, song doesn't know about its genre. So when I call song.genre here, this breaks. When I call song.genre here, this breaks. What's that? In the spec. I'm here, right? So where would I do that? So this is taken care of by this let here. So what's going on is we need to write code that accounts for many different potential uses of the code. So what's happening is we have tests where we're saying, I would like to be able to push a song into add song where I haven't yet told the song about its genre. Maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe you say no programmer should ever pass a song into the add song method until the genre is been specified. Maybe that's how you think about things. The way our tests run, we're saying we do want to be able to pass a song into the add song method and not worry whether or not its genre has been set. So I need to be a little bit more careful here and guard against edge cases. So I need to say I only want to do this if song.genre exists. Right? If we have set the genre, then we want to add the genre to the list of genres. If we have not, we'd still like to be able to pass a song in here. Same thing with not in genre. I'm calling song.genre, and in this case, that's returning nil. And then I'm trying to call the artist method on that. So again, I need to say only if song.genre exists should I be doing that. So does this make sense? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on our sort of like view of the world. But the test is saying we would like programmers to be able to write code where they can just create an artist, create a song, not tell the song about its genre, and pass it into the add song method. And then your add song method has to be the one that's defensive and saying, I don't know what kind of input song is going to be. It may be a song that has a genre. Maybe this is like a new kind of song. We don't know what this genre is yet. This is like a new genre that's never existed before. Or it's a new language or something like that. It's not in our database. So you could say that like we kind of want to be worried about bad data, right? We think that there could be songs that maybe haven't had their songs input yet, or there's a new genre or something like that. So this is just our view of the world. This is how the test is seeing the world. It may be right, it may not be right, depending on how you see things, but this is kind of like the tests are the requirements that we've been given. We have to make our methods work no matter what types of inputs we've been given, or we might all as a company say, we will never pass in a song that never has a genre, in which case I don't have to do that sort of defensive programming. So maybe I like get rid of this test and I say like, this is never a case that will happen. But like we call this regression testing, right? Where we're saying, this is like an edge case that your program must handle. So now I've unbroken that code, right, by adding that little conditional, and now I'm just saying don't run these specific lines if I get like weird input. All right, so now we're back to genres. We can reset all genres that have been created. So I need to be able to instantiate a genre, right, and then I have a class method called reset genres. This is just following the exact same pattern as like artists, so I'm not going to go into it. What was it? I'm going to push myself in here. I'm going to make a reset genres. all exactly the same as artists, undefined method, all. We want a count method. Again, all the same. Cool. And then we get to song, and song wants you to write your own specs. I feel like a lot of you are like glazed over at this point. I can't tell if you're tired or if we just want to take a break or you're totally following, but it's a lot. Like, let me know. We can do whatever. You guys want to take a break and come back to this?
Break or no break, could we just touch whenever we get back? Could we touch on the conditionals for a song?
Mm-hmm.
And
Cool. The thing that we just did.
yeah.
So at some point in like the song space where the artist adds a song, I mess something up. I completely broke it. But then I follow along with the rest of it and I understood it. So I'm in a weird space where I broke something and I have to go figure it out.
Okay.
I understood the rest of that.
Okay. I think the understanding is the most important part. All right. Put your hand up if you want to push through. Put your hand up if you want to take a break. Okay, sounds like most people want to push through. We're almost there. We got 25 minutes until lunch. We'll talk about how to write our own specs. Okay, a song can initialize a song. So we haven't really talked that much about writing our own specs, but hopefully like seeing all of the other specs give you a sense of like what we're trying to do here. So these are kind of like requirements we might get from our boss, right? They're telling us, here's how the system should work. I want to be able to like have songs. Songs should have names. They should have genres, and they should have artists, right? Like I want your program to have these things know about these other things. So you need to write like an actual program that is assuming that the blueprint that you're then going to create works. So I call this writing the code that you wish you had. So I can initialize a song. So when I'm writing my program, I would love to be able to write code that looks like that, right? I would love to be able to initialize a song object. And I expect that it will be an instance of artist or song. So I want to be able to call song.new, and what I get back, I want to be an instance of song. I want it to have a name. So I want to be able to call song equals song.new. I want to be able to call name equals swimming pools. And I want to be able to then ask it, what is your name? Right, so I want to be able to expect and usually I'd make this a variable. What? Right, so this is the code that I want to be able to write. I want to be able to initialize the new song. I want to call its name equals method, and then I want to be able to call its name method later, and that name method should give me back what I put into the name equals method. Right, this is the program that I can imagine myself writing. This is how I would use the code. I want to make sure that it has a genre. Same thing, right? Song equals song.new. Maybe I'll give it a name. I want to be able to call its genre equals method. Now here, we're giving you guys some flexibility, right? So when we say you can have a genre, that can mean whatever you want, right? So maybe you want to make a method called give my song a genre, right? Maybe that's way more meaningful to you than with no equal sign, right? Than what I just did. Song.genre equals. Song.genre equals is the convention, right? That is a setter. We're setting the genre of a song. But I often like to write method names that are like descriptive, and I prefer that a lot than to just doing like genre equals. So maybe you want to write someone that says like set genre, but it just looks like that. That's fine. So you're saying this is the program that I want to be able to write, and then later you'd go and make the blueprint that makes it work. So just for the sake of like argument, I'm gonna like tweak this slightly, diverge from the convention just a little bit, so we understand like what we can change and why we might change it.
This is kind of one question, but that describe and quote song means that everything has to be within the song class, right?
Technically, no. Actually, if you do this, that refers to the song class itself. This is just it's a string. There's no real meaning. And even if you did do this, the convention is everything should be related to the song class. There's nothing from a Ruby perspective that is enforcing that. All right, so I want to be able to call set genre, and then later I want to expect that when I ask it what its genre is, I want it to be the specific genre object that I passed into it. Okay, I want it to have an artist. I'm going to make a song. I'm going to give it a name. Oh, I never gave it a name, Peter. So giving it a name is not like required, right? There's nothing in the spec that describes giving it a name, but maybe I want to be able to do that, right? And so I'm just writing it down and saying these are the things that should be able to happen. So I want to be able to give it a name, and I want to be able to give it an artist. So I'll call this, we'll make this one follow the convention. And then I expect that when I ask it what its artist is later, that it's going to give me back the specific artist, right? So this is Kendrick Lamar. So I got a song, swimming pools, right? I got an artist, it's Kendrick Lamar, and I want to be able to tell the song, hey, your artist is Kendrick Lamar, right? The specific artist. And then I want to be able to ask it, hey, Kendrick, hey, swimming pools, who is your artist? Who sings you? Right? And I want it to give me back Kendrick. So let me run these specs. They should all fail. And now I can make them pass. Well, with the exception of, we've already created the song class. So now song can have a name, right? So I need to make the name equals method in song. I'm going to go super fast here because I think this is all really like similar. Song.name, right? I need to have a name method following the convention. Wrong number of arguments, 1 for 0. My view of the world, right, was that I should be able to initialize a new genre object, and the signature I want is I want to be able to pass in wrap like that, but that was not how the rest of the specs worked, so I can't do that. So rather than doing it this way, the API that the test enforced was that we had a name equals method. So we'll do that instead. Again, totally arbitrary, right? But we got to pick one way. Song.setGenre, I don't have that method. So this was the only one that kind of diverged from our typical pattern, but the rest of the pattern is the same, right? We expect that this method is a setter. It takes in something and it sets the instance variable called genre equal to that something, and then later we followed the pattern and we said just return that thing back out. And then we want an artist equals method. We followed the pattern here. Following the pattern of a setter. Spelled it wrong. We need an artist method. Return that thing back. And now we got all of our tests passing. So in Song, I basically did the exact same things as all the other ones, right? I said, I want to be able to create associations between these objects. These associations were pretty basic, right? I wanted to be able to tell it about its name. I wanted to be able to tell it about its genre. I wanted to be able to tell it about its artist. And nothing in here was I specifying that, like, also, once I tell you about your artist, then magically your artist should know its genre or something like that, right? These were just like super basic tests. There's probably a lot more tests that I might want to write, right, that are more complicated. I might say, when I call the set genre method, like, it tells the song about its genre, and it also tells the genre about its song, or something like that. I want to, like, write out the API that I want, right? What's the program that I'd love to be able to write? And then at the end, what's the thing that, like, what's the state that should have changed, right? I want to exercise some method, check that the state, the internal variables that I have been changed in a way that makes sense, right? The whole point of this is wiring all that stuff up so that when you do the CLI project, right, you read in a bunch of files and we build like a database, basically in memory, where like we have a bunch of artists, we have a bunch of songs, we have a bunch of genres, and I should be able to ask any of those objects, hey, genre, tell me all the artists that belong to you, right? So we can make like a useful app. The whole point of this, again, if you only take one thing from this, like that's really what we're doing. We're building an in-memory database. We want all of these things to have these associations. Just logical, like from the real world. Like a lot of this probably felt really abstract and weird and whatever. Once you put in like real instances, real artists, real genres, real songs, it makes a lot more sense. And when you think about why you're doing it, you're not just trying to make the test fast. We're trying to build basically like a music player, right? Playlister.
So is it cool if we like change this method?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. And this is one version of the world, right? This is one version of how you could wire these things up. You could call the methods whatever, you can call them instance variables, whatever, as long as those associations make sense to you. Yeah.
I'm just given a failure error for it just says implement this spec, and it's for the song to have a name. So like I know this for the song dot spec. Song have a name. Yeah, it can't have name. And I wrote it. It says implement this spec. Name error, undefined local barrier, or method spec or spec.
Let me see.
All right, I'll ask you later.
Okay. Other questions on this? Does this make more sense now? Hopefully. How many people are done with Playlister? I mean, CLI. Okay. So maybe we won't review that one yet then. Or maybe like going through this afternoon, if you didn't finish it, will be more sense, and then maybe do CLI tomorrow or something. Okay. All right, thanks guys.